Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all the news of the past week around the hockey world. Jaromir Jagr's days in the NHL appear to be over. The Vegas Golden Knights set an NHL record this past week. And also Gary Bettman held a presser at the All-Star Game to discuss various topics. We'll have the details of all this, plus the Minor League Hockey Minute, the NCAA Hockey Minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 24, recorded on Friday, February 2nd, 2017. All-Star recap and final playoff push begins.
Shut up and sit down.
Through center ice. Aerial flipping on Ward. He'll put it on a tee for Victor Rask. Final push here. 17 seconds on the power play. Noah Hannafin through center. Justin Williams crisscrossing. Kick to the outside. Rask a shot. He scores! Hey, what do you say? Victor Rask, Carolina, with a 2-1 lead.
Two minutes to go. Tierney fires in, went off to Zuccarello. Shea moves it. Here's Zuccarello into the Shark zone. Zuccarello to the net, around the net. Pass in front, score! JT Miller! Off a great play by Matt Zuccarello. Rangers lead 6-4.
The length of the rink. No surprise that Pietrangelo, followed closely by Edmondson, leads St. Louis in shorthanded time on ice per game. Pastrnak twirls the backhand back to Krug. Spooner down to the corner. Pastrnak to Bergeron. He scores! Patrice Bergeron buries the one-timer. It's 2-0 Boston.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 24 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name's Wayne Halley. I'm here with Steve Ball. How's it going tonight, Steve?
Going great, Wayne. Good to talk to you, and excited about another week of podcast news and stuff that's taking place around the NHL. We have a lot to talk about.
We certainly do. We got an All-Star weekend, of course, to talk about. We've got the end of one era and the return of another. I've got details on what that means. And don't look now, but it's trade deadline month. Trade deadline is at the very end of February. So not that there's a lot of news going on in that, but it's obviously something that's going to be heating up here in the next couple of weeks anyway. We've got some more injuries to talk about. Vegas broke an NHL record this week. And apparently NHL's 32nd team is on the way. So we'll have all that and a whole bunch more to talk about.
Yes. And, Wayne, it appears that they're going to usher in Seattle rather quickly since we're on this the subject. I don't see that taking very long.
Yeah, it seems like, there was a press conference and that Gary Bettman had a press conference during the All-Star break. So he talked about a whole number of things, and one of the things that they talked about was expansion. So I'll have details of all that stuff talked about in the press conference a little bit later in the show. But first, before we do that, let's get into how our three favorite teams have done over the past week. And that, of course, is the Boston Bruins, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the New York Rangers. And the New York Rangers had a very slow week this week, so let's get them out of the way.
Yeah, they only played 2 games. I felt, we didn't see much of Henrik Lundqvist in those 2 games. Andre Palat got the start in the game right before the All-Star break against the San Jose Sharks, and we actually won that game 6-5 in a rather thrilling game. I didn't watch that game. That was one of those weekly night games I didn't watch. I watched the Anaheim game before it, but Needless to say, Andre Palat won that game. I heard he played well. He played the entire game and gave the Rangers a good send-off into their rest period for the All-Star game. And last night, we came out and laid an egg at the before the Madison Square Garden crowd in a game that Henrik Lundqvist really was never in, and neither were any of the Rangers. I could go into details on what maybe perhaps some of that is, but let it suffice to say that the trade deadline is coming up. It may have had some impact on the game, and there are some injury problems the Rangers are battling through. But regardless, it's a game that if you watch that game and you're a Rangers fan, you really never had very much to cheer about. It was really, I think, the worst game they played all season. So I think last night you got to see Toronto play exceptionally well. But I don't know that the Rangers had heart in that game last night. They really didn't. And so
and they've been off for a while.
I was extremely disappointed.
Yeah. They were off for a while, so you would think they'd be coming in fired up for that game last night.
And they weren't. Yeah, there was no jump to their game at all. It was a lackluster performance. They from the very beginning they just were never in the game.
I think it was rusty legs.
I think it's mental.
Okay.
I really believe that it's mental. I think it's it could be a combination of the fact that the injuries that they have right now to some key players has a big effect on the team. It really does. And I think in addition, I think there's stuff going on as far as the status of the team with this upcoming trade deadline. What that is and how that plays out, I don't know. But I think that has something to do with it. I think there's some stuff that's going on as far as players who will and will not be there by the time the trade deadline's over.
Well, I was hearing rumblings over the weekend of the All-Stars that the Rangers might be a seller coming up,
right,
rather than a buyer.
Right.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
Oh, it very well could. So whether or not that's true, Wayne, I don't have any first-hand knowledge of that.
It's rumor and speculation is all I heard. But
right.
You know how rumor and speculation goes. Carolina Hurricanes were on their way to Quebec City not too long ago. So
right, that's right. So and again, I think they've got a game or two here where they shot themselves in the foot. They can get right back in this. They're going to have to do it on the road, but they got to go right now. It's the type of thing where they're not in Edmonton's shoes right yet, but they have got to start playing good hockey, being in games from the very beginning, which has been their problem all season, and playing with some jump and some passion. That's got to happen. So,
yeah, they can't fall too far behind.
I think you can go right across the board. Henrik Lundqvist played very poorly last night.
Yeah.
He did not play well at all. I think if you asked him that question, he'd answer it that way. So they got to have it from every single player. But without Chris Kreider and without Kevin Shattenkirk, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard to make the playoffs.
Well, now Buchnevich is hurt too, so and we'll get to that.
He's out.
Yeah.
He's out. And of course, Kevin Hayes just came back from injury, so they've been banged up and to key players. So we'll see what happens. We've got a week ahead against 4 playoff teams.
Yeah,
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes, on the other hand, have had a fairly busy week. And, of course, we did last week's podcast how they were just coming off of a loss. And they were basically sitting in dead last in the Metro. Of course, dead last also means they were still ahead of like 5 teams in the Atlantic Division in terms of the playoff race. So, because the Metro Division is so tightly packed, dead last, they were still only, I think, 5 or 6 points out of a playoff spot. even though they were dead last in the division. But since then,
Right.
they have played 3 games. They had a 6-5 win at Montreal back on the 25th. And then, of course, you had the All-Star weekend. And then coming out of the weekend, they got a 2-1 win against Ottawa on the 30th. And then last night, they got a 2-0 win against Montreal on the 1st, or last night. So that's 3 wins in a row for Carolina now.
Yeah.
Granted, they're playing weaker teams. It's Montreal twice and Ottawa. So if Carolina's going to make the playoffs, they've got to have those games. They've got to win those games.
Right.
Montreal and Ottawa are both below them in the standings, as are the Detroit Red Wings, who are their opponent tonight. But even though they're playing weaker teams, it's a busy week for them because they had a game last night, they got a game tonight, and then they turn around Sunday. They have another game. So 3 games and 4 nights for them. But when you're playing those weaker teams, you got to have those points. And Carolina, even though it was ugly, that 6-5 game against Montreal, that game was a wild game. I watched a good chunk of that game, and it just seemed it seemed like more of a contest to who was going to lose that game more than who was going to win it. It's just that game went back and forth all night long. But the game against Ottawa on the 30th, that they squeaked that one out 2-1. And they were having a little trouble scoring up to that point. But Sebastian Aho, their top scorer, is now back on the team. He came back from his concussion, so he's back in there. Even though he didn't do a whole lot, he did get a goal or so. I know he got a goal in the Montreal game, but I can't remember on the Ottawa game. I don't have the score sheets right in front of me, but he did have a goal coming back on his first game after injury. But yeah, overall, Carolina, they're getting 2 points, so that's all that matters at this point. So now they are sitting, as of going into tonight's games, they're sitting in the 9th spot in the East, and they're tied with Philadelphia, I believe, for that 8th and last playoffs seeding, or tied in terms of points. So Carolina's right there. They've clawed their back.
They're there.
They've clawed their way right back into the race, and we'll see what happens from here on out. But Carolina's got to have those games against those weaker opponents. So far they've done, at least in the last week or so, a pretty good job of getting those points.
Yep.
All right, now let's take a look at the Bruins. Boston had a 3-game week as well. They had a 3-2 win against Ottawa back on the 25th. And that was at Ottawa. And then they had a 3-1 loss against Anaheim coming out of the All-Star break on the 30th. And that loss ends their 18-game point streak that they had going. So that streak is done, and they can move on with their season now so that they're not getting so much attention anymore. But those 2 games, the Ottawa game and the Anaheim game, they were without both Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand due to Marchand's suspension and McAvoy with his injury. But I believe this, and then on the 1st, last night, they got a 3-1 win against St. Louis at home, and that was a fun game to watch. That was back and forth. Both goalies played great. Both teams got plenty of shots on net. It was a fun game to watch, that one last night. But they did manage the.
And to follow it up with, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Follow it up with a loss against Anaheim. To follow it up with a loss against Anaheim and come back against a strong team like St. Louis and play like that's really good.
Yep.
Really good.
Yep. It was good to see, and they're still without McAvoy, and they're still without Marchand. I believe the St. Louis game was Marchand's 3rd out of his 5-game suspension, so he has only 2 more games to go on his suspension. And Charlie McAvoy, they're expecting him back any day now. He's back on the ice skating, and I believe he was supposed to start either today or yesterday. He was supposed to start taking full contact in practice in order to get him back into game shape. So they won't be without Charlie McAvoy too much longer. And it's crazy, a young rookie like him, how much the Bruins have relied on his talent and his puck carrying capabilities. But it's been noticeable not having him there.
Right.
So it'll be very good to get him back, and it looks like he's due to come back any minute. So,
Right.
As far as the rest of the week, actually on the ice for regular season games anyway, it was a pretty quiet week. Obviously, we had 15 games on Thursday night where basically everybody played except for one team. And then there were no games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday due to the All-Star weekend. And then, of course, we got back on the ice Tuesday with 12 games. And then Wednesday was a light
night.
Yep, only 3 games. And then Thursday was another heavy night with 12. And then Friday, which is tonight, there's only 4 games tonight. So, but let's talk All-Stars. I don't know how much of it you saw.
Watch the whole thing.
Okay. I
didn't miss any of it.
I got to see bits and pieces of the game itself, so I don't have, but I did see the skills competition, and there's a lot of people that are bored by this kind of stuff. These showcase events like this, but I still get excited for it. I still like to watch it, just to see the raw talent that these guys have is it's just fun to watch. As a hockey player myself, I can appreciate the talent that those guys have and some of the things that those guys can do. Casual spectators, I hear a lot of people talking about, when I was a kid, I enjoyed it, but now I'm bored by it. If you just watch it for the pure talent and the ability and the skill that these players showcase, I think that's what I enjoy the most.
Right.
And the bantering that goes on, too, because they mic the players and such. That's always fun, too.
I tell you, it's the best of the All-Star games. It's head and shoulders above the NFL, who had the Pro Bowl going on at the same time, the Major League Baseball All-Star game, and the NBA All-Star game, which to me is, I may be the worst out of them. I don't know. It's either NFL but the NHL really is rivetingly entertaining. It has in the last couple of seasons moved itself as the premier All-Star game, in my opinion. But I think you'd find a lot of people who would agree with that in the sports world.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that still believe baseball still has the best, but yeah, it's purely an entertainment thing. It's not meant to be competitive, even though they tried to make it competitive by putting $1 million on the line for the winning team. And, of course, that made the championship game of that little tournament a little bit more competitive than we would have seen otherwise. But you're still not going to see hitting. You're still not going to see fighting. That you're not going to see that stuff.
You really don't even see penalties. There was the first penalty was called this year on Johnny Goodrow.
Yep.
And that was it. I mean, they're just not going to call them. So
usually if you see anything, it's one penalty, and it's usually some sort of stick foul, a hook, a trip. Something that's very, very minor. You're not going to see boarding and checking from behind and all that kind of, hard stuff. So, I don't know. It is what it is. I enjoy it for what it is. It's supposed to be a showcase of the best players in the world and the most talented players in the world.
Right.
I was curious too with the skills competition coming up, because I wanted to see who was going to win. I was most in particular looking for hardest shot, because obviously Zdeno Chara and Shea Weber have dominated that event for years and years. I think going back to 2002, I think, was the last time someone other than those two guys won it.
Right.
But this year, neither one made the All-Star team. So that opened up the thing wide open. And and to everybody's surprise, I figured it would continue going to a defenseman, because that's usually a defenseman-dominated event. But lo and behold, a forward won it this year. None other than Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, and he does have a rocket. I mean, he has a powerful shot.
Yep.
I would say the best when it comes power play time. He's a go-to guy.
Yep. He's the first forward to win it since 2002, to win the hardest shot.
Wow.
Sergei Fedorov was the last forward to win it. It's been dominated by defensemen since then. So, but I don't know. I kind of like some of the changes that they did this year. Of course, they started out with the fastest skater. That was pretty much the same as it's always been. And, to nobody's surprise, Connor McDavid won that event.
Won that again.
Yep. The Dunkin' Donuts passing challenge, they changed things up a little bit, made it more of an individual event rather than a team relay style. So the changes they made to that event basically made it you had to complete a number of passes, a lot of them having to lift the puck over an obstacle and then into a small little net or a small little target, whatever. And then they timed it. Whoever finished all the events, that's who won. Alex Pietrangelo won it this year. The save streak event, that was basically trying to see which goalie could make the most saves in a row. Henrik Lundqvist won that one this year.
Yeah, yep.
So that was what was his streak? His was what?
I did not watch that particular part of it, but
where is he? Actually, no, it was Marc-Andre Fleury that won that one. I don't know why I said Henrik Lundqvist. Marc-Andre Fleury won that one with 14 saves in a row that he made, and I think he was making saves against the Metro, so he was stopping guys like Ovechkin and Crosby.
Right?
No, he wasn't.
I didn't.
No, he wasn't. God, I got it all wrong. Marc-Andre Fleury faced Jack Eichel, Alex Barkov, Braden Point, Mike Green, Austin Matthews, Brad Marchand, Erik Karlsson, Nikita Kucherov, and Steve Stamkos.
So he faced the Atlantic Division.
Yep, and he saved 14 in a row against that group of players, which is no slouch of players, but
not at all.
But yeah, he did that. And then
I was doing double takes there. You said Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, really. And then the puck control relay was won by Johnny Gaudreau. That was the one where you had to carry the puck through a whole bunch of obstacles, and one of the obstacles was ridiculous. It was those tall sign things where they had holes at 3 different spots on the thing, and like the highest one was like 5 feet off the ground or 4.5 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And Johnny Gaudreau ended up getting through all that in 24 seconds. Now, did you see how Erik Karlsson did his?
I missed this part of the skills competition.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
the funniest part is you had to take you had to pick up the puck, lift it up over through a hole in this wall essentially, and there were 3 holes, and one of the holes would light up, and you had to put it through that particular hole. And you had to do it 3 times, 1 at each level. Well, when it was Erik Karlsson's turn, rather than, most of them do a little flip and put it up on their stick and then, pick it up lacrosse style and put it through the hole, Karlsson literally reached down with his glove, picked up the puck off the ice, set it on his stick, and then he put it through the hole. So
he was disqualified.
Yeah, so well, they allowed it, but it still took him 37 seconds to do it, way longer than Johnny Gaudreau. So,
yeah.
And then what was the other events? The accuracy shooting. They changed that up this year. They used to use foam targets, so when you shoot at the target, basically the foam would just explode and obliterate. Well, this time they had these hard targets with sensors in them, covered by a piece of plexiglass, and and the targets would light up. So they would light up blue until you hit it, and then it would turn red when you hit it. But it would only light up one target at a time, and the player had to shoot at the blue target, whichever one was lit up. Excuse me. And to kind of put a little monkey wrench into things, that blue target would, if you didn't hit it in 3 seconds, it would move to another spot, which kind of screwed up a few players. There were a few players that were in the act of shooting at the target, and just as the puck was being delivered to the net, the target would change because it reached that 3-second mark, and they would hit that target square, but it had already changed to the next spot, so it didn't count. And then they had to turn around and do it. So that was kind of interesting. And of course, that was timed, and Brock Besser was the one who ultimately won that one. He did all 5 targets, 5 of them. The 4 corners and the 5-hole. He did that in 11 seconds.
Yeah, he's the Calder Trophy front runner.
Yep.
And Matthew Barzal's having a great year, but
yep.
I think Brock Besser is.
Yeah, Brian Boyle almost did as well. He did it. Oh, and the funny thing is, Brian Boyle, did you see that article where they mic'd him up? They showed him talking to Hillary Knight, who they had with some of these events. They had some of the. They had some of the U.S. Women's Olympians doing the demonstration on how these events are supposed to work, right? Before the actual players would do it. So they send Hillary Knight out there, and she hits all 5 targets in probably 12, 13 seconds flat. And Brian Boyle was talking to her before she went out there and demonstrated, because he was going first. And he was talking, and the way he was talking, he's like, wait a minute, I got to go out there and follow her? He says, what if she goes out there and hits 5 for 5? He says, and then I got to go out there and follow her.
Yeah.
He says, if she hits all 5 in 5 shots, he says, I'm not going.
I missed that.
Yeah.
I saw the game. I didn't see the skills competition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, I saw most of the skills competition, and then the game itself I didn't see a whole lot of, so because I was refereeing that night. But yeah, it's pretty fun. It's just entertainment. That's all it is. It's not meant to be a big competition. It's entertainment. It's good way to get some laughs.
Yeah.
Because the players make fun of each other and so on. So, all right. Well, let's take a look at some of the transactions that have happened over the past week, and there was actually only a couple. First and foremost, the Tampa Bay Lightning acquired goaltender Edward Pascal from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for future considerations. Vice President General Manager Steve Yzerman announced on Wednesday. So Pascal basically is a minor league goalie. No need to go into too much details. I don't believe he's even played any NHL games, but he's played a couple hundred games in the AHL. Just a depth player. Apparently, Tampa Bay didn't need him anymore, so they moved him on. Edmonton didn't need him anymore, so they moved him on to Tampa Bay. And the other transaction that I had is, I guess it's not officially a retirement, but it's probably heading in that way. But forward Jaromir Jagr has cleared NHL waivers and was assigned by the Flames to Kladno in the Czech Republic League on Monday. Jagr, who's 45, had 7 points with the Flames, but missed 27 games with a lower body injury. He last played on December 31st. He said, I want to thank GM Brad Trelving and the Calgary Flames for giving me the immense opportunity to be part of the team and continue my NHL career this season. Although I'm very disappointed that things did not turn out as we had hoped due to a number of circumstances, I'm deeply grateful to the Flames, the fans, and the city of Calgary for having welcomed me so generously. Now I look forward to continuing the season in Kladno. And of course, Jagr has played 1,733 NHL games, including 22 this season. His first with the Flames. He signed a 1-year, $1 million contract on October 4th as an unrestricted free agent. Kladno is actually Jagr's hometown, and he's been the majority owner of that team since 2011. Mm-hmm. He trails Gordie Howe by 34 games for first in NHL history. Mark Messier is second at 1,756, so he was only 13 games behind Messier for second all-time. Yeah. And he actually sits number 3, and he's just ahead of Ron Francis by 2 games for that 4th spot. So, and of course, the obviously we know Jaromir Jagr's accomplishments. He's second, I think, now all time in points.
Yep.
Behind only Gretzky.
Yep.
But officially now, and this makes me feel much older anyway. He is now officially the last player in the NHL that was older than me.
Wow. We'll hear about him as far as hockey goes, Wayne. So you're still okay. We will still hear about Jaromir Jagr, I would say, for a month or two. Listen, he's not going to come back to the NHL. I don't think there's anybody going to take him. I think the problems with his knees, his groin, all that, it's just you might see him playing professionally overseas. But
I think he's going to continue playing till he's 50 over there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him playing in the Czech League or I don't know. He might take a stint in the KHL. Who knows?
Because I don't see him
coming back to the NHL. He's not going to come back. This is it for him.
Yeah, I think this is it for him. Which he'll I don't think he'll officially announce his retirement until he actually gets done playing pro even over there. But with him owning that team. And as soon as they found out that he was going over there, there was a huge spike in ticket sales for that team. And then he had to come out on Twitter or somewhere. He had to send messages out to the fans, say, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm not actually coming back to play with Kladno. He only went there so that he can beat their trade deadline so that he could play in the postseason if he's healthy enough to play. But he says he's not going to be playing that much right off the bat because of the fact that his knees are still hurting him. He is, in fact, injured. That's why he wasn't playing over here. And he's got to get better before he can start playing there. But if he can get his knee situation figured out and get that solved, I see him playing 3-4 more years in that league, especially where he owns the team. Who's going to tell him he can't play? He owns the team.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're right. He's not suffering from debilitating injuries that he's had throughout his career to his back or to his serious injuries to his knees, etc. He's a healthy guy, all things considered. If you look at him and the entirety of his career, you see a lot of these guys stumble off the ice. They've been through the wars for years.
Yep. And
when they get to the end of their playing career, you find out a whole lot more about them, what they were going through. So, they may be hiding something about Jágr, but I doubt it. He's a healthy guy. He goes through a vigorous workout routine even now coming up on 50 years old. So he wouldn't be capable of doing that if he wasn't in very good shape for his age.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So, well, good. Good luck to Jágr over there. We'll continue to follow him. I saw an interview on one of the Canadian networks with the leader of the Traveling Jágrs, and he said they're still going to be, as long as he's still playing, they're still going to be together. He says now we're just going to have to travel a little bit further to go see him.
Good luck on the plane to the Czech Republic.
To get what? How many Jágrs there are now? Like 10 or 12 or 15,
They're going to have to come up with the Jágr Kladno.
Yeah, they're going to have to charter a jet to get over there with as many Jágrs as that group has now. So, yeah, anyway. All right, well, let's move on to injuries. And there's actually been a fair number of them. A lot of them have cropped up over the last 24 hours. But let's get the older ones out of the way. Colorado Avalanche center Nathan MacKinnon is going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with an upper body injury. That news came out on Thursday. MacKinnon was injured during the second period of a 4-3 overtime loss at the Canucks on Tuesday. He grabbed his shoulder and exited to the locker room with 6:04 remaining after colliding with Canucks defenseman Alex Edler. MacKinnon had an assist and was +2 before leaving. The 22-year-old is second in the NHL with 61 points in 49 games, trailing only Tampa Bay Lightning forward Nikita Kucherov, who has 64 points in 50 games. And, of course, MacKinnon played in the All-Star game on Sunday representing the Avalanche. So it'll be interesting to see if the Avalanche can continue playing at the pace that they have without MacKinnon, who's by far their best player.
Yes. That hurts them tremendously. I just watched them play. I just watched our team play Colorado. Not only does MacKinnon score a lot of points, a lot of the offense funnels in and out of him. If you watch them play, when he's on the ice, he's the central point of their team.
Yep.
And so he's gone now. I can make the same case for the Rangers. Kevin Shattenkirk, when he's on the ice, a lot of the offense, as well as his defensive play, he's a center point for the Rangers, and the game funnels around him. When you lose a player like that, you lose a lot. You don't just lose the fact of his scoring punch, his offensive power and everything. You lose a central part of your team.
Yep.
And you got to recover from that. That's not easy to do. We'll see if Colorado can do that.
Yeah, and they still got some pretty good players. I mean, they've got Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, of course, Tyson Barrie, who's back on D, had a really good season. Carl Soderberg's played pretty well, so they've got a fairly good chunk, but still, MacKinnon is their best player, bar none, and he's a big part of their offense. So, I guess we'll be watching closely to see how Colorado recovers from that. All right, Pittsburgh Penguins forward Connor Sherry, or is it Sherry? Sherry?
Mm-hmm.
There's always the debate, Sherry or Sherry. The different announcers have said it both ways. Is week to week with a lower body injury. The 25-year-old, who's been on Pittsburgh's top line with Sidney Crosby and Dominic Simon, played 12:06 before leaving a 5-2 win against the San Jose Sharks on Tuesday. Sherry had 21 points in 51 games this season after getting 53 points in 61 games last year. So I guess in that case, even though he's on the Crosby line, it's kind of next man up as far as Pittsburgh goes, because Crosby essentially makes everybody play better when they're on his line. But a week to week seems like he'll be out, but I'm sure he'll be back for the playoffs.
Right.
All right, Winnipeg Jets defenseman Jacob Trouba is expected to make 6 to 8 weeks because of a lower body injury. Trouba, who's 23, was injured during the end of the 4-3 overtime loss against the Anaheim Ducks on Thursday. He had an assist and played a team-high 27:05. In 50 games, he has 20 points and a +6 rating. He's second on the Jets in average ice time, and the Jets have controlled 51% of all 5-on-5 shots attempted with Trouba on the ice. He has 125 points in 5 NHL seasons, all with the Jets. Top 4 defensemen. Winnipeg is deep at defense, but you lose one of your top 4. It's going to affect your team to at least some degree.
Oh, absolutely. And well, in the case of Jacob Trouba, there's rumblings about him wanting to be with another team because of his right shot as a defenseman. I don't know.
Yeah, and I actually haven't heard a lot of that lately. I know there was that, particularly during the offseason and leading up to this season, because he was essentially being relegated to like third line or third pairing status because of the fact that he's, basically essentially the third best right-hand shot defenseman. But they have been playing him on the top pair. So
absolutely, and it's not a situation where you have Matt Duchene and he's not getting along, he's not happy and everything, and they're just not. That's not the same with the Winnipeg Jets. They're not. They've come together as a team. So at least it looks that way on the ice, and they're playing very well.
Yeah, they're one of the best teams in the league as far as I'm concerned.
No question. So that, they need him. They need him back as soon as they possibly can get him back.
Yeah. All right. Well, Buffalo Sabres defenseman Zach Bogosian will have hip surgery next week and miss the rest of the season. The procedure has a recovery time of 4 to 6 months. Bogosian, who's 27, will remain on injury reserve and is expected to be ready for the start of training camp next year. I believe we reported his injury either last week or the week before, but now it's come out that he's going to have surgery, and he will definitely be out the rest of the year. So more bad news for the Buffalo Sabres, who's basically the whole season's been bad news for them.
It's not been good.
Yep. And speaking of teams with bad news, Ottawa Senators Bobby Ryan will not play against the Flyers and Canadiens this weekend after injuring his hand on a 2-1 overtime win against the Anaheim Ducks on Thursday, which was last night. Ryan has 20 points in 39 games this season. The 30-year-old has missed 10 games this season because of hand injuries, 8 games from October 24th to November 11th because of a broken right index finger, and games on December 21st and January 9th after that injury was aggravated. He continues to have problems with his hands, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he keeps trying to catch the puck or what the deal is. But yeah, he'll be out, looks like day to day at this point for him. He's a big part of their offense, but Ottawa's having a horrible season. They're not going to make the playoffs, so in the grand scheme of things, it is what it is. It's not a big deal. All right, let's go to one that is kind of a big deal, though. New York Rangers forward Pavel Buchnevich is out indefinitely with an upper body injury. Does that mean a concussion? Buchnevich was injured on a hit by Leafs defenseman Jake Gardiner during the second period of 4-0 loss at Madison Square Garden on Thursday. He did not practice on Friday. He has 32 points in 50 games this season with the Rangers, who selected him in the third round of the 2013 NHL draft. So, did you see that game?
I did. I see it. I saw the injury. It looked to me like it was something in his neck, to be perfectly honest. Either his neck or the base of his head.
Okay.
It could be his jaw for all I know, but it's definitely in from the shoulders up injury. I'd be surprised if it was concussion, but then again, you never know. They may have evaluated him after the game and said, no, concussion protocol. But I would think they would report that. I would think that they would know that by now and report that. So I don't know how serious the injury was, but he did not play after he went to the bench on that. So.
All right. Well, out indefinitely. Of course, Sebastian Aho was out indefinitely when he first got hurt, but it only took him, a couple of weeks to come back, and I think he ultimately only missed like 5 games because of all the breaks they've had lately. But anyway, Edmonton Oilers defenseman Adam Larsson will be out indefinitely after his father passed away on Friday. Robert Larsson, who's only 50, was in Edmonton visiting from Sweden and had a heart attack on January 25th. Adam Larsson left the morning skate prior to a 4-3 shootout win against the Calgary Flames that day. He missed that game and did not play in a 4-3 overtime loss against the Colorado Avalanche on Thursday. Robert Larsson was a defenseman for Skellefteå in Sweden from 1985 to 1996. He was selected by the Kings in the 6th round of the 1988 NHL draft, but never played in the NHL. So, tough situation for Adam Larsson to have a parent pass away so suddenly like that.
Yeah.
Especially as young as Robert Larsson was.
And he was visiting from Sweden?
Yeah, he was in Edmonton when this happened.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
So, thoughts go out to the Larsson family with that. All right, and finally in the injury front, Victor Hedman is back. He played last night. He was originally expected to be out 3 to 6 weeks, but he actually came back in less than 3. And because of all the bye weeks and All-Star break and all the time off that the teams have had over the course of January, he ultimately only missed 5 games with his lower body injury.
Yep.
So as if Tampa Bay can't get any better, they get Victor Hedman back.
They get him back, and they're primed and ready for the playoff run, which they're probably already in. 73 points, and we just started the month of February.
Yep.
So,
yeah, they're going to coast into the playoffs quite easily, for sure.
Yeah, won't be hard for them.
All right. Let's move on to some of the other interesting stories that I came up with over the past week. First and foremost, with 27 seconds remaining to the Carolina Hurricanes' victory against the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday, they struck up the old band. The public address system blared a favorite from the franchise's past, Brass Bonanza, the iconic team song from the days of the Hartford Whalers, the Hurricanes' identity before their 1997 move, delighted the crowd and announcers John Forslund and Chip Tracy. The move to blare Brass Bonanza comes on the heels of the new owner Tom Dundon talking about how he wanted to embrace the legacy of the Whalers. As usual, there were some classic Whalers jerseys on the backs of some of the fans in attendance. Dundon officially became the Hurricanes' majority owner back on January 11th. So I was watching that game, and I heard it in the background. I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Brass Bonanza in Carolina? They've never done that before. Never.
Have they not?
They've always, and it's something that's always disappointed me with the Hurricanes, is they've basically pretended like they were an expansion team when they moved down here. They almost completely ignore the past, the time, the Whalers' history,
right?
Unless it's convenient for them. Like, for example, the goal horn that they're using today is the same. Well, it may not be the same exact goal horn, but it's the same sound. If you watch old Whalers games, when the Whalers will score a goal, the goal horn's the same. And I believe the organ that's in PNC Arena also used to be in the Hartford Civic Center. I could be wrong about that, but I believe I had seen a story that is the case. That the organ that they use, when they play music in between whistles and such, is the same one that came down with the team too.
That's very interesting. That's interesting.
But they have ultimately, they abandoned the colors, they abandoned obviously the logos, and they almost pretended, other than that the Whalers didn't even exist. Like even now, you look at the center ice of the PNC Arena, and there's a big 20th anniversary logo covering center ice, showing that the Hurricanes, been around for 20 years. Well, the team's actually been around for almost 40, but the first part of it they were the Hartford Whalers. So,
right.
But one of the things that Dundon has done since taking over the team is he said he wants to embrace that history, because after all, the Hurricanes now, and I just noticed this a couple of days ago, the Hurricanes now have been an NHL. The Hurricanes have been in the NHL longer than the Whalers were.
Okay.
Now, if you count the New England Whalers of the WHA, the Whalers existed for a longer period of time than the Hurricanes have. But in terms of NHL, The Whalers came in the 79-80 season, and they were out by the end of the 97 season. So they were in the NHL for 17 years. Well, this is Carolina's 20th season.
Right.
So Carolina's been around longer than the Whalers as far as NHL is concerned. So I say, yeah, why not embrace it? Because, you've been to games. I've been to many games. There's always...
You see a lot of people with Whalers jerseys.
You have lots of people with Whalers jerseys on. And a lot of them, I've asked a few of them, I've said, are you from up there, or are you just, trying to be the cool guy who knows their history? And most of them are transplants. They're from that area or from the Northeast somewhere. They were a Whalers fan growing up, and they happened to move down here for work or whatever. And they kept their Whalers jersey, and then they wear it to the games. But yeah, I always see you can't walk through the concourse between periods or before the game, after the game. You can't walk through that concourse more than 30 seconds without seeing a Whalers jersey.
Right.
Or more.
Right.
So they're around.
Yep.
So sure, let's embrace it. Let's have some fun with it. And he even mentioned that he's open to the idea of the Hurricanes wearing Whalers uniforms or some variation of for a game or two in the future.
Right.
If the league will let him.
Right.
I'm curious to see if the league will let him. So, or maybe they do. If they let them, they'll say, yeah, you can do Whalers, but you got to keep the same colors. So, can you make a red and black Whalers jersey to keep the colors the same? Who knows? All right, this story I've got titled "More Fake News Out of Canada." So this is going to tick off our Canadian listeners. I've kind of been growing more as I follow the hockey closer and closer. I've been more and more skeptical at some of the news stories coming out of Canada because Bettman even said it himself when he referencing the potential move to Quebec City from Carolina or Arizona or any team that is struggling. There's always rumored to go to Quebec City. And Gary Bettman has actually used the term, and I can even pull out the audio to prove it, that it's more wishful thinking on the part of certain cities and cities' media outlets, okay? Mm-hmm. So as more and more of these stories come out, I found another one that I'm titling More Fake News Out of Canada. This week, the Montreal media asked Hurricanes coach Bill Peters about the trade rumors, quote-unquote, surrounding goaltender Cam Ward. Peters said he knew nothing about those rumors and laughed them off. He's here. He's been here his whole career, Peters said after the morning skate prior to the Hurricanes hosting the Canadiens at PNC Arena on Thursday. He's played well for us. He's 14-6-2. I think that's a bad rumor. It makes me laugh a little. We're trying to make a push. I want to add players. Start that rumor. Let's add to our mix, not detract. Sounds like Bill Peters is a little sick of these fake media outlets too.
Well, the Montreal press is, they've been that way. God, they were that way when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's not like they're starving for news. But if you heard it first, you heard it from Montreal,
Yep.
And that's, the same thing goes on to a terrible extent, actually, in the real world outside of sports, outside the hockey world.
Yep.
But you're right. It's fake news.
Yep.
The whole Quebec thing was fake news. You and I really, I felt, did a good job with that when it came out on our podcast, and it happens from time to time, and a lot of times it involves that area.
Toronto's got another good place to find that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, no question about it. To a lesser extent, maybe Vancouver, but
yeah. Well, you're going to find that you've got so much media clamoring for attention and readers and ratings and so on that they're going to scratch and claw and grasp at just about anything that they can. And even if someone were to tell me, the Hurricanes are rumored to trade Cam Ward. Really? Because Cam Ward signed here, taking far less money than he was making before in order to stay here. He loves it here. He doesn't want to go anywhere.
Right.
His families have put roots down here. He's got a house and so on. I mean, he's a veteran of the league. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He'd probably retire first. So the fact that someone has said, yeah, they're gonna trade Cam Ward, it's just another news story out of Canada where basically they're disrespecting the Hurricanes. They think the Hurricanes are a failing club and that they're going nowhere and that they're on their way out of this town. So and you and I have seen what's going on here locally, particularly lately since the new owner has taken over, and every day I'm getting more and more excited for this team to be for what lies ahead with this team. So,
right.
Unfortunately, they're in your favorite team's division, and they're battling with the Rangers for a playoff spot, and it could end up being either them or.
It is exciting to see, Wayne. It is exciting to see the Raleigh, what's going on there. There's no question about it.
And attendance is growing with every game. So, although tonight's not going so well, they're getting their butts kicked by Detroit. But it is what it is. So, just wanted to put that one out there. All right, next story. Did you see the story about Steven Stamkos and PK Subban sharing a childhood bond?
And I did not. I did not see this until I have not seen this article.
Oh, you're going to have to go to this article and watch the video. Somebody came up with a video from when Steven Stamkos and PK Subban were about, 7, 8 years old, just little players. They were actually on the same team at one point in time.
Oh, wow.
A little travel team out of Toronto area, and they were teammates. And there is actually highlights of this team playing in action with some, probably one of the dads or something, doing play-by-play with showing, Steven Stamkos and PK Subban playing hockey as teammates as little 8-year-olds. So
that is wild.
So, yeah, it's an interesting video. The link's in the show notes. It's really not much to talk about other than you should go see this video, and you can easily find it by just clicking on that link. It'll take you right to the article, and you can watch the video. But PK Subban was the star of that team for sure. He was carrying the puck up and down the ice, end-to-end, scoring goals. Stamkos scored a goal in this little highlight package, and Stamkos was so tiny. He was like by far the smallest player on that team. So it's kind of fun to watch. And then they showed them in the locker room with their helmets off, celebrating their win, and they're chanting, and and you could tell. You just look at the little kids' faces. You could tell. Oh, there's Stamkos right there, and there's Subban right there. And none of the other players, because they listed all the players' names as part of this little video. I've never heard of any of the other players, so none of those other players eventually made it to the NHL that I'm aware of, other than those two. But it was kind of interesting to see. I like watching those little videos. All right. Now, as far as an era coming to close with Jágr, there's one that is getting reopened. Mike Fisher is coming back. So that's what we hear anyway.
Yeah.
He's been skating with the team the last few days. I guess apparently decided sometime in the last couple of weeks that he missed the game, and he sees how good the Predators are doing this year. They're poised to go on another Stanley Cup run, and he wants to be part of it. So he's now trying to work out. I guess he hasn't been working out much since he announced his retirement, and he's trying to get himself into playing shape so he can get back on the team. He hasn't officially signed yet, but he has until February 26th, which is the NHL trade deadline, to sign. As long as he signs by then, he can play for them in the playoffs.
What do you think, Mike? Mike, what do you think about this, Wayne, in terms of whether or not he can do it?
Well, I've got mixed feelings. I have no doubt if he can get himself back into shape, he can do it, because he's only been out of the game for a few months. He can't be that far out of shape. I got kind of mixed feelings, though, as far as whether it's right or not, because here the Predators have been going through the whole season mucking and clawing and grabbing and scratching for every point they can to put themselves in a position that they're in to basically, at a point now, they can coast into the playoffs. And then Fisher's going to come along late in the season and, play a couple dozen games, if that, and then get a shot at the playoff run. But word is that everybody associated with the team, including the players, are excited for his return. So as long as they're happy, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But I can't help thinking about whose spot is he going to take on that team. Somebody's going to lose their spot. Somebody's going to lose their job. They're going to get sent to the minors because he's coming back. So that's the only negative part about this is if you ask that guy, whoever it may be, whether they're happy for his return, they might not agree. But
in the annals of Nashville sports, Mike Fisher is a very big guy coming back in on things. But if you look at hockey as a whole, I don't think that if for example, all of a sudden Jaromir Jagr's knee injuries go away and he comes back to Calgary, I don't think the guy that goes down to the minor leagues is going to think as badly about that. Here's probably one of the 5 greatest players of all time to ever play in the NHL coming back to play versus Mike Fisher, who in the halls of sports teams and the annals of the Hall of Fame in Nashville as a sports town, he stands up there, but not in the NHL. Yeah. That guy going down is going to look at it and say, "Hey, wait a minute now," But I don't know. It may be that he slips in and it's done seamlessly and there's no problems to the team at all. But I agree with you. I think that, if he is capable of playing at or near the level that he played last year, he might be a benefit to the team.
Oh, he'll definitely help them if he plays anywhere near what he did last year. He's a great two-way guy. He's not a high-end scoring guy by any stretch, but he'll be a good third, fourth liner. He can take face-offs. He's a valuable guy to have in the playoffs for sure.
Right, right.
And apparently everybody on the team, the coaching staff, the general manager, particularly the veterans on the team, are all very excited to have him come back. So,
right.
So and in some cases, having a guy like him come back, the Predators may not need to do anything at the trade deadline. Just adding him will be all they need to do because they're already a really strong team even without him. So.
Right.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see whether or not he can get himself into game shape. And he might sign, obviously they're going to wait until they think he's ready to sign him, but he has till February 26th to get himself ready.
Right.
So we'll see. All right. Next story I have, the New York Islanders announced that they're going to be playing 12 games at Nassau Coliseum in the 2018-2019 season now that they're getting a new arena, and that arena is going to be under construction. It's going to take a couple of years for it to be built, but they still have to do something arena-wise for the next couple of seasons. And apparently what they're going to do is they're just going to split time between old Nassau Coliseum and where they're currently playing now at the Barclays Center. So it looks like they're going to have 12 games there next year, and I think as many as 20... Well, it just says, the article says 48 more during the 2019-20 and the 2021 seasons.
That sounds like a little over half of their home games at Nassau Coliseum.
Yep. So it looks like, 12 next year and then 24 each year over the next 2 seasons. My guess is the game or the new arena is going to be ready at some point during the 2021 season. So what they'll probably do is open the season exclusively at Nassau and then move into the new building as soon as it's ready. Mm-hmm. And they'll probably be done with Barclays Center after next year, after the 1920 season. Right. That's just a guess, but I guess time will tell. But yeah, they're going to have to be playing some games back in Nassau Coliseum. So the place hasn't closed down completely just yet.
That's right.
All right, next story. 2 different storylines from this NHL season have come together over the All-Star weekend into a funny sequence during the All-Star game. And I know you were watching the game, and I don't know if you saw and got all the references. But, of course, Wes McCauley has gotten a bit of a reputation for some of his calls.
Yes.
You had one with the Rangers there where they did he had that long dramatic pause when he was calling a goal review.
Right.
Well, his calls at center ice where he gets on the mic and have become kind of famous. So in the All-Star game, they ended up having a goal that had to go under review. And of course, who did they have do the announcement but Wes McCauley, and he added his dramatic flair as usual to that call. Well, another storyline, a separate storyline, has been going on in the week before the All-Star weekend. Austin Matthews scored a goal in a game, and it was taken away for, I can't remember the reason. But shortly after that, I think on his very next shift, in fact, he goes out, scores a goal, and as the goal goes in, he turns around and gives the goal signal, points at the net, just like a referee would. And there's a picture floating around out there that shows both the referee and Austin Matthews pointing at the net, signaling the goal. And that was his way of, basically he was still he said he was still ticked off over having the original goal taken away. So that was just his emphatic, that one's going to count kind of thing. Well, in the All-Star game, of course, Wes McCauley does his dramatic call of the game. Of course, there's a link to that in the show notes if you want to see that again. And then right after that, it was Jack Eichel and Austin Matthews teamed up to score a goal in the All-Star game. And both Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel did turn around and pointed at the goal after they scored.
And I would say Jack Eichel actually did it better with more passion and, heart and soul behind it than Austin Matthews. So.
Yeah, well, Eichel was doing it to be exactly like Matthews did it. That's how Matthews did it in his regular season game. So
he did it very, very well. Very good impersonation.
And then Matthews saw him doing it, so he was kind of doing that kind of half-heartedly too. Yeah, it was a pretty funny moment when I saw that. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. All right, next story. Did you see actually, I don't think they showed it on TV, but they had they now have a mascot, East versus West mascot game that is now official. I don't know when it started, but now they're actually having it for official, where they're actually keeping track of goals and assists and wins and losses and all that.
Yeah.
Well, they have the mascot game where all the NHL mascots go out there and play a game.
Thunderbug
won the MVP this year. And it's the third year in a row that the mascot from the host city won the MVP. I don't know. That sounds a little fishy to me.
It's a stacked deck. That is a stacked deck award.
Yep. So he ends up winning the thing. That's entertaining to watch. I got to see the mascot game when they had it here. Now, they're saying that this year's game was the third official mascot game. So the East holds a slim 2-1 margin on wins and losses in the mascot game. But I happen to know that they've been doing it at least as far back as 2011 because I witnessed it. I was at the skills competition here in Raleigh back in 2011. And when they opened up, I think they opened up the arena 2 hours before the skills competition started. And we made it a point just to go super early. We got in the building as soon as they opened the doors, and shortly after we got in, they all the mascots came out on the ice and started playing a game. So, but apparently it was just a pickup game at that point. There were no refs or anything like that. So, but they've turned that into an official game, and now they actually have an official mascot game. So that was entertaining to watch for sure, because it must be awful hard to play hockey in that mascot suit. Because they got limited vision.
I mean, imagine Chubby Checker. Not only is it hot, but he's a fat thing, man, out there. And,
and a lot of those mascots have that kind of fat suit. So
the bulk.
Yep. So, but not every team has a mascot.
That's right. We don't.
Yeah.
Never have. Hard to put together a mascot for the Rangers that would fit. I don't know what to say other than that.
Well, New York's a pretty hardcore city. They probably take their hockey pretty hardcore seriously. So, but yeah, I can't remember the four. I think there's 4 teams that don't have mascots, but the Rangers are one of them. I don't know. I mean, how do you? Well, I guess the Boston Bruins would be pretty easy. You just have a bear, and that's what they do. Their guy's name's Blades.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's talk Seattle.
Yep.
Ownership group interested in bringing an NHL expansion team to Seattle is expected to file its application for expansion shortly. The good people in Seattle who are in pursuit potentially of an expansion franchise have told us that they're working on an expansion application and anticipate being ready to file in the not-too-distant future, NHL Gary Bettman said during his press conference prior to the NHL All-Star Game. Actually, it was prior to the skills competition. A group led by Jerry Bruckheimer, movie fans will know that name, And David Bonderman, a private equity CEO, were authorized to file an application for expansion by the NHL Board of Governors on December 7th. The cost of the team will be $650 million, and Commissioner Bettman said the NHL is looking at only Seattle for possible expansion. The earliest the team could begin playing is the 2020-2021 NHL season, when it's expected the renovated arena in Seattle would be ready. The timetable in terms of filing an expansion application, doing a season ticket drive is largely up to them, Commissioner Bettman said. We can respond to the extent that we're getting the information on a timely basis, whatever that timetable is, so we can go through the process of what we have to. And someone asked him about timetables. When will this happen? When will they start play? And he said it's not really a timetable thing, it's a process.
Right.
And certain things have to be done in certain orders in the process to get to the point where they get awarded a team. And that timetable is pretty much up to them, he said.
Right. I mean, here's Las Vegas. They got a team very quickly, don't you think, Wayne? They put together their pitch. The NHL agreed with it. It really wasn't a hard sell for them.
Yep.
And here they are, 2 seasons later. They got a team,
and it was about 2 seasons out before when they announced that they got a team, or that they were being considered to have a team.
Right.
When basically it was about 2 years from when they were about the same point that Seattle is now. So
right now, that being said, Seattle is doing this very quickly, in my opinion. This is not going to be a long wait. Here we are. The hockey season 2017-18 is almost. Oh, it really is. It's over half over. We're in the waning stages of the season. We're in the last half of the season.
Yep.
And they're going to have a team in 2020.
Yep.
So it's not taking that long if you really think about it. It is nearly as long as Vegas.
Yep. Yeah, we'll probably know sometime this summer if they get awarded a team, if not sooner than that. And then they will begin all their preparations similar to what Vegas did. So the question is, will they get the same expansion rules that Vegas had? Or do you think the owners will restrict it further so that team doesn't end up being quite as good as Vegas? Because I'm sure there's a lot of
I really seriously would wait till after the playoffs, and then you could make a good judgment on that.
Yep.
Because if Vegas, they're probably going to make the playoffs. I think they'll make the playoffs. They have to fall on their face not to. But if they get in and lose in the first round, then and that could happen, could easily happen.
Yep. But they could easily win the Stanley Cup too if they keep winning the way they have.
Well, and that would be shocking, but you're right, they could. And stranger things have happened. But I think if they do well in the playoffs, I think you're definitely going to see a different ownership expansion draft.
Yeah,
I really do. I don't think you're going to see what Vegas got again.
Yeah, and they're going to
that feeling.
They're going to insist on having the same rules that Vegas had.
Probably so.
Vegas has proven that you can build a winning team with what they were dealt with the cards they were dealt.
Right.
I don't see another team doing it again, but you never know. All right. Other stuff concerning Gary Bettman's press conference that he had over the weekend. He said a group featuring members of the NHL hockey operations officials, coaches, and general managers met on Saturday to discuss goaltender interference rule and reviews in an effort to crystallize the process. He said the goalie interference rule and review has created a bit of confusion, and added that he thinks it's gotten to the point where everybody's overthinking the review. NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley, who was in the meeting about goalie interference, said the people in the room were given a refresher on the language of the rule and its intent. That refresher will be given to every NHL official. So a lot of fans have been complaining about the goalie interference. Nobody seems to know what goalie interference is anymore, and seems like they're starting to address that situation, or at least attempting to, and trying to get everybody on the same page. And we saw evidence of that last night, 2 different occasions. There was a goal in the Vegas game, and there was Boston's first goal in their game. I thought for sure they were going to wave it off. And, of course, everybody on the opposing side also felt that it should have been waved off. But But yeah, Boston's goal ultimately stood, and they explained it by saying, look, the puck was already in the crease. No Boston players were in there when the puck was in there, and they went in after it. And once the puck is in the crease, it's fair game, especially if it's loose.
Right.
So they're going to looks like they'll be less likely to call goalie interference in cases like that. Really, the only time they should be calling goalie interference is if the goalie is interfered with prior to the puck getting there. So once it's loose, because before they had this meeting, guaranteed that Boston goal gets waved off.
Right.
Not sure about the Vegas goal, but definitely the Boston goal would have been waved off. But looks like they're finally straightening things out in that sense. Mm-hmm. All right, and then the NHL also announced that there's going to be a whole bunch of games in Europe. Just very quickly, Sweden, Finland, preseason games in China, and I believe Germany too. So it looks like, and they're targeting certain teams too. Like they're going to have the Devils, who Nico Hischier plays for. Devils will be playing in Switzerland. Leon Draisaitl, who's from Germany, will be playing with the Oilers, and they will be playing in Germany. So it looks like the attempt to grow the game globally is in full effect. So there'll be regular season games in Europe, just like there were this year. Back in November, there were 2 games in Sweden between the Senators and Colorado Avalanche, and then, of course, the Kings and Canucks played the China games, but those were preseason games. So they're going to basically more of that is going to happen next year, is essentially what they announced. Mm-hmm. And then they also announced that San Jose is going to be the host for next year's All-Star Weekend.
Yes.
So that'll be a very expensive
And that's a
trip.
Good choice, too.
Yep. It'll be a very expensive trip for anybody who wants to go. That's not a cheap city to visit.
That's right. San Francisco is expensive.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to milestones, honors. Vegas Golden Knights set an NHL record last night, actually, for most wins by an NHL team in its inaugural season, winning their 34th game, beating the previous mark set by the Ducks, who finished their season at 33, 46, and 5, and the Panthers, who finished at 33, 34, and 17, both in 93, 94, back when NHL games still ended in ties. 9 of Vegas's wins have come in overtime or the shootout. So Vegas has beaten that mark, and we're still only in February. Beginning of February, really.
Right.
We still got 2 full months of the season left, and they've already beaten that mark. So they're going to blow through that.
They might win. They're going to probably win 50 games.
Yep. Yeah, probably.
Stunning.
Yeah, for an expansion team, for sure.
Yep.
And this week, Gary Bettman has now become or has passed the 25-year mark as NHL commissioner. So think back 25 years, what the game was like. What was there, 21 teams back then?
Yep.
There was no shootouts. Fighting was a bigger part of the game than it is now.
Jaromir Jagr was just beginning play.
Yeah. A lot has changed in Gary Bettman's time. So congrats to him, even though everybody likes to boo him. All right, your 3 stars for the month were Evgeny Malkin from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins, Colorado Avalanche, goaltender Jonathan Bernier. So they were the 3 stars of the month for January. The rookie of the month this past month was Matthew Barzal, who led all rookies with 12 assists and 15 points in 13 games in January. So he's the NHL Rookie of the Month. And then our players of the week this week were Brock Besser from Vancouver, Buffalo Sabres center Jack Eichel, and Buffalo Sabres goaltender Robin Lehner. So Buffalo's had a pretty good week. So they got a couple of players in the top 3. And then Brock Besser basically earned the number 1 star for essentially winning the MVP of the All-Star game. All right.
Great player.
Yeah, he's going to be fun to watch. And I saw I saw a meme this week, and actually I thought of it during the skills competition when they showed him doing his accuracy shooting. He's kind of got this longish blonde hair, and he kind of did this hair flip like after he finished shooting when they showed him. Oh, you got the Hockey News with his.
I got him. He's on the cover.
Yep. And he did this little hair flip during the skills competition after he did his thing, and I'm like, that reminds me of, and of course it's totally childish, but it reminds me of the movie Shrek, I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yeah, I have, and I can't remember on this one now.
Okay. Prince Charming, when he first makes his appearance, and they do the slow motion of Prince Charming doing the hair toss, right? And in the face, Brock Besser kind of looks like the Prince Charming character from Shrek. So I thought of that. I'm like, he looks like Prince Charming from Shrek. And then lo and behold, somebody a couple days later tweeted out a meme, or there's a meme floating around of Brock Besser and Prince Charming both doing the hair flip at the same time, and they look. I mean, they're spitting images of each other. It's hilarious. It's pretty funny, but yeah.
Words fail me, Wayne.
But yeah, as a hockey player, he is fun to watch too. All right. So anyway, that's all the news stories I have for the week, unless you got anything you want to add to it before we move on to the power ranking.
I'm going back and watching Shrek here late night.
Wow. Well, alrighty then. Let's do some power rankings then.
Yes, and I am ready for this one, Wayne.
It's your turn.
And yep. I always have an honorable mention. And my team now is not even close to the honorable mention anymore. No. They're down around 20. But the honorable mention for the week at number 17, looking out to try and get a spot in the playoffs, is the Minnesota Wild. I've got them listed at 17. And then I'm going to go right down the list from 16 all the way to 1. And if you have a debate about it, Wayne, stop me. We'll talk about it. But at 16 today, probably the weakest team in the field would be Philadelphia. Then at number 15, a team that just continues to slowly, but they continually downturn down. That's the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 14, the Colorado Avalanche. Number 13, the Dallas Stars. Number 12, a team that's making moves and going up the ladder, and that's Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Penguins playing well. They're coming back now. Yep. And I think you're going to see that continue. Number 11, the Anaheim Ducks, another team that's coming back, playing well now. They look really good. Number 10, New Jersey, slightly moving down the ladder. Number 9, San Jose. Number 8, Toronto. Number 7, the Washington Capitals. Number 6, the St. Louis Blues. Number 5, the Nashville Predators. Number 4, the Winnipeg Jets. Number 3, the Boston Bruins. And I have number 2, the Vegas Golden Knights. If you look at all the tiebreaker type stats that they keep between Vegas and Tampa Bay, Vegas has one more regulation overtime win. Vegas has a higher goal differential. Tampa Bay has a higher goal differential, etc. Yep. So I put as number 1 again this week the Tampa Bay Lightning, only slightly over the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep, fair.
And that's my power rankings.
Fair enough. And yeah, Vegas is continuing to win, but Tampa Bay, Vegas has lost a game or two here or there in the last week or two as well. But Tampa Bay has they kind of look like they were floundering there, and I think a lot has to do with the Victor Hedman injury. They have a couple other injuries as well, but Hedman is first and foremost the big one. But the last couple of games or so, Tampa Bay has really asserted itself as the number 1 overall team once again. So
right.
So yeah, no disagreements there. And Toronto at number 8 is beginning to look scary again too. I don't know if you've noticed their last couple of games, but they're not just winning games; they're blowing out teams.
Yeah. Now. I would say though that the game last night against us, they were good. When Andrei Pavlik came in the game, they didn't score. He played exceptionally well. So I just think Henrik Lundqvist had a very off night and did not play well at all.
Yeah.
So it would have been interesting to see, had Pavlik started that game, what would the outcome have been?
Yep.
You don't know.
Yeah.
So,
but they've
that's the only thing I'll say there.
Yeah.
They are definitely, if you watch them play, they are still a streaky team.
Yeah.
They go on surges of momentum, and they surge in momentum, actually, I think, better than the Pittsburgh Penguins. They surge, they can score 2 or 3 goals, they can shut it down on the defensive side of it, and they play great in the neutral zone. They have a very good forecheck.
Yep.
They play very well, and then it's like lackluster. It's like they're skating through marshmallows. They can't seem to get it going, and they slow down, and it's a mental block, and and then they come back, and that's at least my observation. So that's going to probably continue through the rest of the season. They're a young team, and they're learning.
Yep. Yeah, but they beat, of course, they beat the Rangers 4-0. They beat the Islanders 5-0 before that, and they beat Dallas 4-1. That's their last 3 games they've given up. They've scored 13 goals. They've allowed 1 in their last 3 games. So
right.
That's pretty scary. And Pittsburgh, I wanted to note too, is starting to look like Pittsburgh again, which is
right,
which is scary too.
Yeah,
because Pittsburgh had fallen out of the playoff race. I don't believe they're quite there in it yet, but they're going to find their way. If they keep playing the way they are now, they're going to find their way right back into the playoff picture at this point. They beat Washington 7-4. That's a pretty huge win against a very good Washington team. They beat San Jose 5-2. Again, good team. They beat Minnesota 6-3. And then they beat Carolina 3-1. So those are their last 4 games. So all wins, all comfortable wins for them. So yeah, Pittsburgh is looking pretty scary there. So, and LA continues to drop. I know you didn't mention them in the power rankings, but LA is kind of falling like a rock right now.
Yeah, but they're still in a position to move back into that. They're right there with Minnesota, same number of points.
Yeah,
they're 9 or 10 in the Pacific. But you're right, they're not performing like they were. And Jeff Carter come back yet?
Not yet.
That will be a big.
But he's due anytime.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, LA is 3-7 in their last 10, so they need to turn things around. Toot sweet. So other than that, I mean, the Kings. The Kings and right now the Rangers are probably 2 of the weaker teams over the last 10 games. Other than the teams that are at the very bottom of the standings, who have been there and will continue to be there. And I'm talking Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo, Arizona, down there.
Right.
All right, let's look ahead at the next week. Boston has 3 games over the next week. First and foremost, they're playing Toronto on Saturday night. That's tomorrow. Probably a Hockey Night in Canada game, even though the game is in Boston. Then they're at Detroit on the 6th. And then they play the Rangers on the 7th at New York.
Wednesday the 7th. Yes,
yep.
At the Garden. That'll be the last game between us this year.
And that'll be the rivalry game on NBC Sports here in the U.S. So
looking forward to that game.
So it should be a fun game to watch.
Hey, have you guys played at Little Caesars Arena? You've already played there, haven't you?
I believe so. I don't know. I haven't really
early in the season.
I haven't really followed it that close. I think they did very early in the season.
Yeah, that's really a great venue.
So Carolina, on the other hand, has 4 games this week. They're pretty busy. They had 1 tonight against Detroit, and that game has since gone final, and Detroit came away with a 4-1 win in that game. And then they've got San Jose on Sunday. And then they've got Philly on the 6th and Vancouver on the 9th. So, unfortunately, a game against Detroit. Looks like Carolina, although we were doing the podcast, I wasn't really watching the game, but it looks like a combination of their defensive lapses and the fact that they couldn't put the puck in the net is kind of combined with the loss there. But San Jose, that's going to be a tough game for them. Philadelphia's been playing well lately. That's going to be tough. And then the Vancouver game, they're just going to have to find a way to get 2 points out of that game.
Agreed.
And Carolina has 10 home games this month of February, and only 3 road games. So if they're going to make hay here in the standings, this is the month to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the Rangers, on the other hand, have a lot of road games coming up.
The Rangers have road games throughout a good chunk of the rest of the season. And it starts tomorrow night in Nashville against a team, Wayne, that a lot of times we play very well. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to jinx them. They're not playing well as of late, so hopefully they can pick it up. But these two games, the Nashville game and then on Monday night, the 5th against Dallas, those are two Central Time games, really, and two games the Rangers really need desperately to win.
And those are two good teams.
And those are two good teams that they got to try and come up with a win in one of those two games. If they can win both of them, my gosh, they need to go buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, that's two top 10 teams right there. And then
top 10 top 10 teams. Although I don't know that if I put Dallas in the top 10.
Well, they're close.
I don't think I did. I got Dallas at 13. Yeah. And then they turn right around and play Boston, who went 18 games and got a point in it. So, it doesn't let up. It's a tough week.
Yeah. And
finally they close that out back at home at the Garden against Boston Wednesday night, and then against the Calgary Flames on Friday night. So a game I feel a little more comfortable about. But
yeah, and Calgary's had their moments. They went on a run here. Didn't they have like an 8-game win streak for a while there? But they've been sputtering of late, though.
Right. We'll see how that goes. They actually played at Lasker Rink the last time they came to New York.
That's right.
They had a practice at Lasker Rink. So they like going to New York City. And, of course, who doesn't? Most teams like go to Madison Square Garden and whoop up on the Rangers. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And then as far as the rest of the league is concerned, of course, Saturday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night continue to be your best nights to watch if you want to watch a bunch of games, because the rest of the nights there's only 3 or 4 games each night. But next Friday night, for some reason, Fridays are usually a slow night, but there's 8 games next Friday. So, and then just to preview things, I know we won't have a podcast next week, but between now and our next podcast, the Olympic tournament starts up. That tournament starts up on the 14th. So our next podcast, we'll be talking a little Olympic hockey.
That's right. And it might be the 14th, Wayne, when we have that podcast.
Could be. Depends on how things work when I get back down south. So
work schedules, yes.
Yep. All right. So that wraps things up around the NHL. Let's move on to our minor league hockey minute. And let's see. I guess we'll start with mine, since we've been talking All-Stars a lot tonight. Of course, the American Hockey League and the East Coast Hockey League have their own little All-Star shindig. And those happen pretty much over the past couple of weeks. I think the AHL was the same time as the NHL. And then I think the ECHL did theirs like a week earlier.
Right.
But the Rochester Americans, rookie C.J. Smith, scored the only goal of the championship game as the North Division captured the 2018 AHL All-Star Challenge title with a 1-0 win over the Pacific Division at the Adirondack Bank Center at Utica Memorial Auditorium on Monday night. The HL All-Star Challenge is a round-robin tournament among the league's 4 divisions, played 3-on-3. The first 6 games are 10 minutes in length, followed by the 6-minute championship final. Down by 3 goals with less than 3 minutes remaining in the final preliminary contest, North Division rallied for a 4-3 win over the Atlantic Division to earn a berth in the championship. Smith finished the night with 3 goals and 2 assists, earning 2018 All-Star Challenge Most Valuable Player honors. Syracuse Crunch rookie Mitchell Stevens had 2 goals and 3 assists. Belleville Senators forward Gabriel Gagne tallied a goal and 3 assists. And Utica Comets forward Reed Boucher scored 3 times on the night for the North Division, which is also led by the goaltending of Rochester's Linus Ullmark and Utica's Thatcher Demko. Pacific Division was paced offensively by Tucson Roadrunners rookies Nick Merkley and Kyle Kobianco, while Stockton's Rasmus Anderson and San Antonio's Rocco Grimaldi notched 5 points apiece. Charlotte's Valentin Zykov tallied 5 assists, while the Checkers teammate Warren Fogle and Hershey's Chris Bork, Ray Bork's son, each recorded 4 points for the Atlantic Division. Grand Rapids' Matt Laredo, Chicago's TJ Tynan, and Rockford's Carl Dahlstrom tallied 3 points each for the Central Division. So kudos to all those players that we just mentioned.
Yes, sir.
And this tournament took on a little bit different approach, though, than the NHL. The NHL just takes 2 teams, puts them together, they play a game, the other 2 play, and then there's a championship game. Well, this one had essentially 7 mini games in it. So they had a round robin, so each division played every other division once. And then the top 2 teams left faced off in the championship. So kind of a different take on that. So
that is neat.
6 shortened games. So 6 little 10-minute games. So wonder if we'll see that end up in the NHL anytime soon. And then in a related note, the ECHL had their All-Star. They follow the same format as the NHL in that they just take the 4 divisions, divide them up, and 2 of them, they have 2 games against each other, and then the 2 winners play in a championship. Mm-hmm. And the Mountain Division beat the South Division 6-5 in a shootout in the championship game of that All-Star Classic. And
where was that held, Wayne? Did you? That
was held at, let's see, Indianapolis.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Because I know the AHL was in Utica.
Yep, Indianapolis. All right. So that was my pick, or minor league hockey minute. And you had one talking about the NHL-AHL relationship.
Yes, and I'm going to try and get through. It's a relatively long article, but it's by Patrick Williams, the NHL.com correspondent. It deals with the growing commitment that the NHL is making in the AHL. No doubt, Wayne, that the AHL is the NHL's top development league, and they use it. They're using it more and more extensively. This is a really good article, and I know it's going to promote a discussion, so let me get through this. The NHL reaps benefits from its relationship with the AHL. A growing commitment, investment in top development league is paying dividends. This was the article January 31st by Patrick Williams, NHL.com. The numbers make the case for the relationship between the AHL and its top development league, the American Hockey League. Last season, 88% of NHL players were AHL graduates.
Wow.
60. Yeah, that number really was surprising. 60 AHL players have made their NHL debuts this season. Bruce Boudreau, John Hines, Peter Laviolette, Todd McClellan, Joel Quenneville, John Tortorella, and Barry Trotz are among the NHL coaches who are AHL coaching alumni. That kind of successful production continues to spur even more investment by NHL teams in the AHL as they seek every possible edge. The investment that is being made now in the AHL teams and AHL players by the NHL is dramatically different than it was even 10 years ago, AHL president and CEO Dave Andrews said at the AHL All-Star Classic annual address Monday in Utica. Having a strong development system at the AHL level is really a critical part of sustaining high-quality play with the NHL team. With that level of investment by NHL teams, they want to be able to see their prospects daily. They want to monitor their progress. They want to get to practices, get to their games with NHL senior management. Here is a look at 3 organizations and their increased commitment to the AHL. Very interesting here. Closer to home is entitled The First Team. And the Colorado Avalanche to the growing add the Colorado Avalanche to the growing list of NHL teams bringing their AHL prospects much closer to home. 13 NHL teams have made AHL affiliation changes since 2015, almost half the league.
Yep.
The AHL will have a record 31 teams next season. They're adding a team. We're stabilizing our geography, and that stabilization is centered around our teams being closely geographically connected to their NHL partners, Andrews said. Geography fueled that decision for the Avalanche. They will move the Colorado Eagles, last season's ECHL champion, and their ECHL affiliate to the AHL next season.
Oh, okay.
That will put their AHL prospects in Loveland, Colorado, a 50-minute drive from the Pepsi Center, and allow management to make regular trips to see them in a market where the ECHL team plays to 94.8% capacity.
Wow.
The fact that they won the ECHL championship last season plays heavily into that. But that's amazing. 95% capacity.
That's not bad for a minor league team.
Isn't that good?
Yep.
The move will also allow the St. Louis Blues to have their own AHL affiliate. And this is what we were wondering in earlier podcasts this season. The Blues will be the new parent team for San Antonio, the Rampage, replacing the Avalanche. The Blues, who are scattering their prospects with 3 AHL teams, the Chicago Wolves is among them, signed a 5-year affiliation agreement with San Antonio that starts next season. The second team, story entitled Development Days. The Los Angeles Kings call them Development Days, and the concept is simple. In 2015, the Kings relocated their AHL affiliate from Manchester, New Hampshire to Ontario, California, a short drive from Staples Center. That change created a significant opportunity for Kings prospects. Kings Director of Player Development, Nelson Emerson, a veteran of 771 NHL games, along with development coaches Glenn Murray, 1,009 NHL games, and Jarrett Stoll is now on the staff with the Kings, and he was a veteran of 872 NHL games. All make regular trips to Ontario to provide prospects with personal instruction. Goaltending development coach Dusty Imu works most days with Ontario rookie goaltender Cal Peterson, a 5th-round pick, number 129 overall in the 2013 NHL draft. Also, the former starting goaltender for the University of Notre Dame, you'll remember last year they went to the semifinals with Cal Peterson. There's a whole whack of them, Ontario captain Brett Sutter said of the traveling contingent that arrives from Los Angeles. You get to see familiar faces come down almost daily. Those guys that make the drive from LA, there are a lot of them. It's hands-on and they're always there for questions. It's been an amazing experience. The final team from Marlies to Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a very homegrown roster. Forwards Tyler Bozak, Connor Brown, Nazem Kadri, Leo Komparov, Josh Levo, William Nylander, and Nikita Soshnikov came to the Maple Leafs after playing in the AHL. That's amazing. Defenseman Connor Carrick, Jake Gardiner, and Morgan Riley made the same journey, while forwards Kasperi Kapanen and Travis Dermott have been the latest recalls. Maple Leafs prospects can expect considerable hands-on instruction along with a winning AHL environment under coach Sheldon Keefe. The AHL leading Toronto Marlies are 32-11-1, have an 11-game point streak, 10-0-1 during that span, and are on their way to making the Calder Cup playoffs for the 7th consecutive season. The biggest thing the AHL represents is opportunity, Keefe said. It's all about opportunity. Keefe, 37, who played 3 seasons in the NHL with the Tampa Bay Lightning, can recall a much simpler development template. The Maple Leafs have built a premier AHL setup, but Keefe notes there is ample competition from other NHL organizations. I just think that the amount of time, money, manpower that is put into development of players and coaches is just far greater than when I played, Keefe said. There was maybe one assistant coach, max. No video coaches, no full-time goalie coaches, no skills coaches. It was almost a holding tank for players. Now, I believe it's true development. I think really all this has become so now, and that's a game changer. So really a very interesting, in-depth, quick look, but in-depth to the extent that it goes over a lot of things that are taking place right now in the AHL, and it's kind of exciting. I look at this league, the AHL, as trying very hard to compete again with the league over in Europe, and I'm glad they've got this 31st team and that they're shoring things up as far as that goes. So kudos to the AHL for what they're doing.
Yeah, it's actually really, really smart of them to put as many of their teams close to their NHL affiliate as possible, because you can essentially share a fan base there.
Right.
So you have a lot of fans. A lot of fans complain about the prices of NHL tickets across the board around the league, because it's quite frankly it's not cheap to go to a game. It's it's bad enough to go for just one person, but to take an entire family and feed them and drinks and hot dogs and all that stuff, you're gonna, for a family of 4, you're gonna shell out $250 just, and that's for upper bowl.
Right.
You can go to an American Hockey League game for, you could probably keep it under $100, and you can feed them quite nicely and sit pretty close to the ice.
And have poutine in Charlotte.
And have poutine if you're in Charlotte. I'm sure most of the other rinks have it as well. But, yeah, I mean, And you're seeing a lot of the players, like, for example, when I went to the Vegas Golden Knights versus Carolina Hurricanes game there recently, Di Giuseppe and there was one or two other players that were playing for the Hurricanes that night that you and I had seen playing in Charlotte the night we went to see their game.
That's right.
So you get a chance to see, those players up and close and personal. So it's actually very smart for them to move the affiliates around so that they stay close to their. And in some cases, they're like Toronto, they're in the same city, and in one case, at least one case, they're in the same building. San Jose Barracuda play in the exact same rink as the San Jose Sharks.
I did not know that.
In the SAP Center, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you don't even have to go to the different building to see those games.
Yeah.
So, and I think they curtain off when they play in a big arena like that, they just curtain off the upper bowl so that you're going to sit in the lower bowl no matter what. So, but yeah, it's a smart move, and I think it's smart to have, keep the number of teams in the AHL equal to the number of teams in the NHL. So every NHL team has its own AHL affiliate. So,
right.
And it would be nice if the ECHL followed suit, but that they don't quite go that far. Most NHL teams do have an ECHL affiliate, but not everybody does. Some NHL teams share those. So, because you don't see a lot, other than goaltenders, you see a lot with goalies, but you don't see a lot of players that end up in the ECHL that end up going to the NHL. It doesn't happen very often. It's a big jump.
Right.
But for goalies, it's not that unusual because the NHL wants their goalie prospects to be playing as much as possible. So it's not unusual to see if you have all your goalies, say you got 8 goalies in your system, top to bottom, 8 goalies throughout, all levels.
Right.
It's not unusual to have the top 3, have one of them in the NHL, have number 2 be in the AHL, and number 3 in the ECHL. And your number 4 guy is very likely to be your NHL backup. They're not playing many games, so they want their goalie prospects playing games, not sitting on the bench. So it's actually pretty common for that to be the case. So yeah, it is common to see goaltenders go all the way down the ECHL and then work their way up to the big team, but players not so much. It's a big jump for them. All right, let's move on to the College Hockey Minute then. We're going to talk some NCAA. Of course, starting with Maine, they had 2 games at UMass Amherst last week. Won them both, 3-2, both nights. So they're now 8-6-3 in Hockey East. They're still in 6th place, and they're now 14-9-4 overall. And they moved up from 25th to 21st in the pairwise. So they're still outside that bubble in terms of getting an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament, but they're still trending upward. We'll put it that way. This week, they have 2 games at home versus Merrimack. Merrimack is currently 47th in the pairwise. So in my mind, those are must-wins for Maine, and I haven't checked. Game 1 should be over by now. It's 10 o'clock on Friday night, so that game should be over. I haven't checked to see what the scores are yet. As far as over the past week around the country, I'm just going to go ahead and pick one big upset of the week, and in my mind, that was number I lost it. That was number 1, Notre Dame losing to number 13, Minnesota, 1-0 in overtime last weekend. And I did watch bits and pieces of some of the college hockey games last weekend because it was due to the All-Star break. There was no NHL to watch, so I was watching quite a bit of college. I watched one of the Denver games last week. I watched last week North Dakota and who was playing them? It was in North Dakota. I remember that. North Dakota and Denver. Oh, yeah, duh. North Dakota, Denver. That was a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
That one got pretty heated, too. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say outright fights because you get ejected for fighting in college hockey, but, there were definitely everything right up to, but just coming just short of fighting going on in that game. So it was fun to watch. 2 very highly ranked teams going at it.
Yeah.
All right, as far as upcoming games this week that are between highly ranked teams, number 2 Notre Dame is playing number 17 Penn State. Number 18 Wisconsin is at number 20 Michigan. Number 9, Minnesota Duluth is at number 4, Denver. In fact, I've got that game on right now above my head. And number 15, Western Michigan is playing unranked Miami. Number 13, Nebraska Omaha is at number 6, St. Cloud State.
By the way, Notre Dame did beat Penn State 5-3.
They did. Yep. Yeah, Big Ten is quickly becoming a very powerful conference in college hockey. Big Ten didn't exist a few years ago.
Yeah.
In terms of college hockey. But it's a small conference, but it's a powerful one. They've only got 6 teams. But all 6, last week all 6 were ranked. This week, Michigan State has fallen out of the rankings. So they're having bad news all around at that school. Let's see. Number 9, Minnesota Duluth, and number 4, Denver again. I guess that's it for this week. So looks like I'm watching the best game of the week right now. Oh, number 16, Boston College does play number 11, Northeastern, but not till Monday.
Yeah.
Which is unusual to have a midweek game. Oh, it's the Bean Pot. Oh, that Bean Pot's coming up.
That's right. Bean Pot is coming up.
Yep, that is a great tournament. If you don't know what the Bean Pot is, you've got to treat yourself to some Bean Pot hockey. That tournament's been going on, God, it's got to be 65 years, somewhere around there. It always pits the same 4 schools against each other. They're all Boston schools, hence the Bean Pot, because Boston's known as Beantown, known for their baked beans. Boston College, Northeastern, Boston University, and Harvard are the 4 schools that compete for the Bean Pot every year. And Boston College and Boston University have won about 90% of the Bean Pots. Northeastern and Harvard have very, 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 very few between them. But it's always a fun tournament to watch. And in a lot of ways, if you talk to a lot of the players, they put the Bean Pot higher up in priority than the Hockey East Conference tournament. Most of them do.
Yeah.
They don't quite put it as high as the NCAA tournament, but the Bean Pot is definitely the number. In terms of desire to win this tournament, Bean Pot is always, in their minds, number 2 to the NCAA tournament. And the Hockey East is a distant third. So, well, of course, Harvard's not even in Hockey East. They're in the ECAC.
When does that start, the Bean Pot?
That starts Monday night.
Wow.
First game's at 5. Second game is at 8. Both games being broadcast live on NESN, if you have that, New England Sports Network. And of course, the games take place every year at TD Garden, where the Boston Bruins play. So I am definitely going to watch that. That's a couple of days before we head out for Maine. So, and then the championship game will be the following week. They used to have it on the weekend. Years ago when I was growing up, that tournament basically took the place of regular season. Now they're doing it in addition to. So they've scheduled Bean Pot. 1 week they have the semifinal games, and then the next week the championship, rather than scheduling the entire tournament over the course of 1 weekend. So the scheduling's changed over the years, but the same 4 teams are still participating, and it's probably one of the most tradition-rich mini tournaments in college hockey. All right, let's move on to our picks of the week. Oh, before we do that, I got to update the pairwise, don't I? Pairwise rankings this week. 16 is Michigan. 15 is Penn State. 14 Northeastern. 13 Western Michigan. Tied at 11 is North Dakota and Minnesota. Number 10, Minnesota Duluth. Number 9, Providence. 8 is Omaha. 7 is Minnesota State. 6, Ohio State. Tied for 4th is Clarkson and Denver. Number 3 is St. Cloud State. Number 2, actually tied at first in the pairwise rankings, is Notre Dame and Cornell.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame now at 20 wins on the season. First college team to make it to the 20-win plateau. So that alone should get them into the tournament, even if they lose the rest of their games. Usually if you get 20 wins, you're pretty much in. All right, now let's move on to the picks of the week. You want to talk about Travis Roy, and I'm going to talk about Sidney Crosby. So why don't I get mine out of your way, because yours sounds pretty inspiring. So mine is about Sidney Crosby, and I don't know if you saw this article, but it's an article I found on NHL.com. And with in mind that I'm heading up north to go play in an outdoor tournament, I thought this article fit nicely in with that theme. The article goes as follows. A young man from Mont-Tremblant, Quebec, got the surprise of his life in early January when he thought he would have his neighborhood outdoor rink all to himself by getting up at dawn, as he usually does. On the morning of January 9th, Guillaume Ouimet was surprised to find he had a playmate, and not just any playmate. In a story published in the Montreal Daily, La Presse Plus on Wednesday, Ouimet said Pittsburgh Penguins captain Sidney Crosby showed up to get his skate on. Immediately recognized him from a distance, Ouimet told La Presse Plus. I was stunned. The next thing I knew, I was introducing myself. The Penguins were off for 5 days. They were on their bye week. And Crosby took advantage of the break to spend some time with his girlfriend in the Mont-Tremblant area. It seems the kid will find a rink wherever he goes. Crosby laced up his skates in a snowbank beside the rink and worked out for more than an hour with the 19-year-old Quebecer who plays junior AA hockey. Ever the perfectionist, Crosby twice put off leaving the rink in order to practice getting out of the left corner without being held back. The two new rink pals made their way to the local arena, where Ouimet showed Crosby the dressing room used by his team, the Mont-Tremblant Diables. Ouimet told La Presse Plus that he had trouble getting anyone to believe him when he returned home and told his incredible story to his family and friends. It was only 2 days later, when he received photos taken by Crosby's girlfriend, that he was able to prove to everyone that he had truly experienced a dream morning. So short and sweet, but what an incredible, an incredible story.
You know, and it's not like he was at some rink in Western Pennsylvania either. You know, he's up in you wouldn't expect to see him there. You know, during the season like that. That must have really been stunning.
Yep. I mean, here he is. He's a kid he's playing juniors, so he's between 16 and 20 years old. He likes to go to this outdoor rink. It's not a pond. It's an actual rink that is maintained probably by the local town or some sort of outing club. It's an outdoor rink, and this kid likes to go there early in the morning because obviously nobody else does. And usually at these local outdoor rinks, I can tell you for a fact that a lot of the flooding that gets done, to maintain the ice surface, of course, they flood. Generally, these outdoor rinks are flooded with a fire hose. Most of these places don't have Zambonis. So they scrape the ice with shovels, clean it up, and then they lay a coat of water down. That's how they resurface the ice, with a fire hose. A lot of that work is done at night because the weather is colder, the water freezes faster. So every kid growing up knows if you want fresh ice, never been skated on ice, the best time to do it is early in the morning. So apparently this kid does that a lot at this rink. And he goes there one morning and he's skating around, and all of a sudden he sees a guy walk up, and who is it? Sidney Crosby, Pittsburgh Penguins captain. That must have been amazing.
Yeah.
That must have been incredible.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Yep.
And he just skated around with him the whole time.
Yeah.
Just the two of them. So yeah, I can imagine him going back to his buddies. Hey guys, guess who I skated with today? I skated with Sid the Kid. No way.
Hey, Wayne, you'd have been hitting them up for tickets.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he can't. Maybe
or pucks or something. Sign a stick for me.
Yeah, at the very least. Well, the pictures. At least Sid's girlfriend was nice enough to send the kid his photos.
Yeah.
So you'll have that for sure. But yeah, that was amazing stories. When I saw that, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And we've done stories on Crosby doing stuff like that. Remember the time after winning the Cup, he went back home to Nova Scotia, and there was this driveway, and they hung a jersey out for him. Sid, please sign this jersey, because they knew he drove by. And he ultimately did show up at their house when he had more time to stop.
Yep.
So I mean,
that was an amazing story.
He's done stuff like that in the past, and it just shows you that a lot of these hockey players, they're people too. And once you get them away from the big arenas and the big crowds, they're just regular guys that just want to have fun playing the game.
That's right.
So I'm curious to see what former NHL players I'll be running into over the next couple of weeks.
You got to text me if you do.
I guarantee you there'll be at least a few former Maine Black Bears there, and possibly former Portland Pirates, because they have been known to play in this tournament in the past. Hopefully not in my division, but but anyway. All right, so let's hear about Travis Roy.
Well, most people, Wayne, that follows talking about somebody who loves the game of hockey. I watched the Rangers game last night, and in between the second and third periods, they had Travis Roy on as their guest, and it was really, once again, very inspiring to hear him speak about hockey and what he's done. as far as dedicating his life to helping people with spinal cord injuries. It was really something. And of course, that article and what happened last night kind of inspired me to write about him today. But the article, which you can find on NHL.com, is entitled "Travis Roy Dedicated to Changing Lives." The smells and sights of hockey are not always easy for Travis Roy. Pucks dropping to the ice, the camaraderie in the dressing room, and the sizzle of the skate sharpener were all part of his life. But all these years later, he's still connected to the game through the tireless work of raising money, helping people, and changing lives. Roy, the former Boston University hockey player who suffered a serious spinal cord injury 11 seconds into his college hockey career in 1995. It's amazing to think about that. 11 seconds. He got on his very first shift with Boston University, and 11 seconds later, his life changed.
I remember that like it was yesterday. It was big news all over the hockey world back then. Of course, he's a Maine kid, so he's originally from North Yarmouth, Maine, down in southern Maine near Portland.
Truly amazing. 11 seconds. Is the longtime face of the Travis Roy Foundation, which is dedicated to improving the lives of those with spinal cord injuries. It has grown tremendously over the past 2 decades and is now able to provide 15 to 18 grants per month to those in need, approximately $500,000 per year, in addition to raising money for research. 20 years later, why am I still doing this? Roy said recently. I think it's partly because I need hope to get up every morning, selfishly. And for me, that hope is supported and becomes a little bit more tangible through the funding of research. To that end, the Travis Roy Foundation is having 3 upcoming events, beginning with the NYC Charity Hockey Challenge at Madison Square Garden, which took place last night. Actually, during the entire day yesterday at Madison Square Garden. The foundation's first event in New York, and is one that is already sold out. Players who raise a minimum of $3,000 will get the chance to play on the Garden ice at 1 p.m. that day. They had a game yesterday, and take the New York Rangers and take in the New York Rangers Toronto Maple Leafs game that night. The New York event will be followed by the 10th annual Men's Charity Bean Pot Challenge at Boston University on February 12th, which last year raised $250,000, and the inaugural Women's Charity Bean Pot Challenge at Harvard University on February 13th. 22 years after his accident, Roy remains a tireless fundraiser and advocate for his community, bringing hope to those with spinal cord injuries. It's a community that he has seen grown in recent years, with Dena Lang and Jake Jablonski and others suffering spinal cord injuries as a result of playing hockey. Roy, 42, and his foundation provide things as simple as a computer for someone who has no ability to contact the outside world, or a doorway that's wide enough for a wheelchair. Little things that you don't think about that make a big difference in people's lives. My foundation doesn't solve everybody's problems, all their problems, Roy said, but it definitely makes their lives a little bit easier, a little more independent, a little bit less stressful or less burdensome on the parents or the family. The hockey piece of his foundation is really the most difficult one for me, Roy said. I was on the ice at 20 months old. For the next 18 and a half years, I literally loved the game of hockey. I loved it with all my heart, my emotion, and it was a big piece of who I was, and I had been brokenhearted ever since the night of my injury. But I still love watching the game being played. I can watch on TV. I can go to a game. I love watching the skill, the speed. It's incredible, the caliber and the quality of hockey that's available to us these days. The harder part for me is being down at ice level, being in the locker room, just hearing somebody dump a bucket of pucks out on the ice. There's the smells, there's the sounds, there's the sensation of the game. It makes him remember. It reminds him how much passion he had for the game. It makes him wonder what it would have been like to have kept playing after those 11 seconds in college, perhaps in the NHL. And I highlighted that article. I didn't put everything into it, but there's a guy that I don't think a lot of people really think about. In 11 seconds, he could have just shut things down. Hey, that's it. I'm done. He could have really taken a negative approach.
Yep.
But rather than doing that, man, he is making a difference in a lot of people's lives, and in people like me. I'm inspired by him. And I actually, from time to time, I'm watching the game of hockey or something comes along, I'm thinking about Travis Roy, that wiffle ball tournament he has up in the New England area.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that guy's doing that are very, very inspiring to people in the NHL. He touches a lot of lives of players in the NHL who go to that tournament.
Yep. And
just a super guy. So I wanted to highlight him as my pick of the week on the show.
Yeah, and the arena in North Yarmouth, Maine, I believe the arena is owned by North Yarmouth Academy, which is a prep school that he played at. Him and Eric Weinrich who played a number of years in the NHL. Both went to North Yarmouth Academy. They actually renamed the arena. It's called Travis Roy Arena now. So yeah, he's made a big difference in particularly New England. He's for folks in New England that are involved with hockey and who know the game up there. He is a household name up in that part of the country. So everybody knows who Travis Roy is if you're at all involved in the game. But yeah, it's very tragic what happened to him. And in the early days after his injury, there's always been that hope that they've been able to find a cure for paralysis where they can allow people to walk again. But unfortunately, they've yet to get there. And of course, even if they did now, Travis Roy obviously wouldn't be able to recover to the point where he'd be able to get on the ice again. But yeah, to listen to him describe, the stuff that he misses, that's tough.
Yeah, that is. But Wayne, I have no clue what type of challenges it is just each day for people. But he's got to feel great about the contribution he's making, because it's not something that he's writing a story here or there. He's making people's lives so much better, and I think that's great, man.
And he's doing it every day. That's his basically his full-time job now.
Yeah, every single. That's so well said.
He was. Yeah. I remember when he started at BU before. He was pretty highly touted, and that was his freshman. I believe he was a true freshman when he got hurt, and not the biggest player in the world, but boy was he fast. That's what they were all saying about him. So no doubt he was a guy that had a future, possibly all the way to the NHL, particularly with the way the game is played today. He'd have fit right in great. Not the biggest player in the world, plenty of speed, plenty of skill. That's the type of player that excels in today's game. So yeah, it's tragic that his career ended just like that, in his first shift playing at BU. But yeah, he's done a lot of good. He's made the best of it.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Yep. So we're good. Well,
thank you, Wayne.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great story.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up. I don't have anything else to talk about. We've managed to take a slow week and turn it into a very busy podcast.
Yeah. I'm hoping my Rangers can come back and put some stuff together. But the one thing I want to say before we go, Wayne, I know we got to sign off here, but I am looking forward to hearing about this pond hockey tournament in Maine, and I hope you'll keep me in mind. I'm going to be down here in a much warmer place, but I'll be looking for feedback from you and how you're doing, man.
Yeah,
I'm going to be watching.
The forecast is looking very, very cold for that weekend at this point. So yeah, I was kind of hoping for mid-30s during the day, to, high teens at night, which is bearable. We do that down here quite regularly, but they're talking single digits during the day for that weekend. Of course, it's still a week out, but the forecast is starting to take shape into being a very cold weekend. So, it'll be fun anyway. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. So, looking forward to it. Yeah, I'll have my camera there. I'll have my phone there. I'll have my video camera there. So, there'll be lots of pictures, lots of video. So, if you want to see what my experience is like there, stay tuned. Probably to the Hockey Nuts Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. To my Twitter account, I'm at Wayne Halley 9. That's probably where I'll put the bulk of the stuff hockey related on there. There'll be some stuff going on my personal Facebook page, and if you want to follow me there, that's fine too. So, but yeah, the bulk of the hockey stuff I'll be putting up online, and then what I'm planning on doing is taking a lot of little short video clips, and then kind of when I get back, compiling it into kind of a nice long, anywhere from 15 to 30 minute video, kind of almost like a mini documentary of the weekend of our experience there. So should be a lot of fun. Never done a pond hockey tournament before. I'm very excited for it, and for that reason we won't be, because it's next weekend. I'll be gone for 6 days. It's a day of travel, a day of rest, 3 days of hockey, and then a day of travel back home. So, very busy weekend. So we'll be skipping next week's podcast, but we'll be back in 2 weeks for the next version. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have there'll be tons to talk about. We'll probably just have to skim over the biggest headlines, and some of the smaller stories will end up getting dropped. But because by 2 weeks from today, or even if we do it 2 weeks from a couple days ago, we'll be into the Olympic tournament by then. There'll be a lot of trade rumors going on. There'll probably be a bunch of trades already taking place. Some GMs don't like to wait till the last minute to do their moves. And, there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about when we get back. So, and playoff races will probably a little bit more clear than they are now.
Right.
There'll be a lot.
Yep.
All right. So let's go ahead and wrap things up then. And until
sounds good, Wayne. Good luck
next
to you.
week. Yeah, we'll have a fun time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
That sounds good.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night, Wayne.